For weeks, the children of tech mogul Andrew Kessler sobbed themselves to sleep in their sprawling Silicon Valley mansion, their wails echoing to the halls despite their father's wealth and influence. No one could pinpoint why, until their unassuming maid, Maria Alvarez, took a single, bold action that stunned Andrew and revealed a truth that changed their family forever. Andrew Kessler was no stranger to success. At 45, he'd built a tech empire from the ground up, turning a small startup into a multi-billion-dollar company specializing in artificial intelligence. His Palo Alto mansion, with its sleek glass walls and manicured gardens, was a testament to his achievements. But in the spring of 2024, Andrew's carefully curated life began to unravel, not because of business deals or market fluctuations, but because of his children. His twins, Sophie and Ethan, were 7 years old, bright and curious, with their mother's dark eyes and Andrew's sharp mind. Their mother, Claire, had died 3 years earlier in a car accident, a loss that left a void in the Kessler household. Andrew had tried to fill it with nannies, tutors, and extravagant toys, but nothing seemed to ease the twins' grief. By early 2024, their nighttime crying had become a nightly ritual, a sound that pierced Andrew's heart and left him feeling helpless. The crying started subtly, a few whimpers here and there, but by March, it had escalated into full-blown sobs that lasted hours. Andrew hired child. Psychologists rearranged their schedules to include more activities, and even installed white noise machines in their rooms. Nothing worked. The twins would go to bed quietly, only to wake up crying, their faces streaked with tears, unable to explain why. Sophie would clutch her stuffed rabbit, whispering about missing her mom, while Ethan would stare blankly at the ceiling, his small body shaking with sobs. Andrew was at his wit's end. He was used to solving problems, complex algorithms, investor disputes, product launches. But this was different. His children were suffering, and he couldn't fix it. He confided in his sister, Rachel, who suggested he take a step back and observe the household dynamics. "Maybe it's not just about Claire," Rachel said during a phone call. "Maybe something else is going on with them." Andrew took her advice, though he wasn't sure where to start. His days were consumed with meetings and conference calls, leaving little time to focus on the twins. The household staff, cooks, gardeners, and cleaners, kept the mansion running smoothly, but they weren't family. The one constant in the twins' lives was Maria Alvarez, their maid who'd been with the Kesslers since before Claire's death. Maria was 32, a single mother who lived in a modest apartment in East Palo Alto with her own daughter, Lila, who was 9. She'd immigrated from Mexico a decade earlier, working her way up from cleaning offices to managing the Kessler household. Maria was quiet, efficient, and fiercely dedicated, arriving at 6 a.m. every day to clean, organize, and occasionally help with the twins when a nanny was unavailable. Andrew appreciated her reliability, but rarely spoke to her beyond polite greetings. She was part of the background, someone who kept the house spotless and the twins' rooms tidy. Maria, however, noticed more than Andrew realized. She saw the twins' red eyes in the morning, heard their muffled sobs through the walls as she dusted the hallways. She'd watched them grow from toddlers to school-age kids, and their pain tugged at her heart. Maria knew grief. She'd lost her own mother as a teenager, but she also knew the twins' tears weren't just about their mother anymore. There was something else, something deeper, and she couldn't ignore it. One evening in April, as Maria was finishing her shift, she overheard Sophie whispering to Ethan in their playroom. "I don't want to tell Daddy," Sophie said, her voice trembling. "He's always busy and he'll be mad." Ethan nodded, his face pale. "But it hurts, Sophie. It hurts all the time." Maria paused, her broom still in her hands. She wasn't one to eavesdrop, but the twins' words alarmed her. She waited until they left the room, then approached the nanny, Jessica, a young woman in her 20s who'd been hired 6 months earlier. "Do you know why Sophie and Ethan are so upset?" Maria asked, keeping her tone neutral. Jessica shrugged, scrolling through her phone. "They're just kids. They miss their mom. It's normal, right?" Maria wasn't convinced. Jessica was competent but disengaged, more interested in her social media than in the twins' emotional needs. Maria had seen her dismiss their questions, rush through bedtime routines, and leave them to play alone for hours. It wasn't neglect, exactly, but it wasn't the care the twins needed. Maria decided to keep a closer eye on things. Over the next week, Maria made a point to linger near the twins when she could. She noticed small things. Sophie flinched when Jessica raised her voice, even slightly. Ethan clung to his sister, avoiding eye contact with the nanny. At dinner, they barely touched their food, pushing around their plates while Jessica chatted on her phone. Maria's instincts told her something was wrong, but she didn't have proof, just a gut feeling that had been growing stronger every day. She started asking the twins gentle questions when Jessica wasn't around. "How's school?" she'd say, or "What's your favorite thing to do with your dad?" Sophie and Ethan were hesitant at first, but they warmed to Maria's kindness. One afternoon, while Maria was folding laundry in their room, Sophie sat on the floor and said, "You're nice, Maria. You don't yell." Maria's heart sank. "Does someone yell at you?" she asked carefully. Sophie looked down, twisting her stuffed rabbit's ear. "Sometimes, when Daddy's not here." Maria didn't push, but the comment stayed with her. She began documenting what she saw, jotting down notes in a small notebook she kept in her apron pocket. She wrote about the twins' behavior, Jessica's dismissive attitude, and the time she'd heard raised voices from the playroom when Jessica was alone with the kids. It wasn't much, but it was enough to convince Maria that the twins' crying wasn't just grief. It was fear. She faced a dilemma. Andrew was her employer, a powerful man who valued his privacy. Approaching him with accusations against the nanny could backfire. Maria had no evidence, just observations and a mother's intuition. She also knew her place in the household. She was a maid, not a family member or a child care expert. But the twins' tears gnawed at her. She couldn't stand by and do nothing. Maria decided to test her suspicions. One evening, when Jessica was out sick and Andrew was working late, Maria offered to stay with the twins until bedtime. Andrew agreed, grateful for the help. Maria spent the evening with Sophie and Ethan, reading stories, playing board games, and listening to their chatter. For the first time in weeks, the twins didn't cry. They fell asleep peacefully, their faces calm. Maria sat by their beds, watching them sleep, and knew she had to act. The next day, she approached Andrew. It was a rare moment when he was home, sitting in his home office, surrounded by monitors and papers. Maria knocked softly, her heart pounding. "Mr. Kessler," she said, her voice steady despite her nerves. "Can I speak with you about Sophie and Ethan?" Andrew looked up, surprised. He wasn't used to Maria addressing him directly. "Of course," he said, motioning for her to sit. "Is everything okay?" Maria took a deep breath. "I don't think the twins are okay," she said. "They've been crying every night, and I think it's because of Jessica." Andrew's brow furrowed. "Jessica? The nanny? She's been great. The kids love her." Maria hesitated, then pulled out her notebook. "I've been watching them," she said. "I've written down what I've seen. Jessica yells at them when you're not around. She ignores them, leaves them alone for too long. I think they're scared of her." Andrew stared at her, his expression unreadable. "That's a serious accusation, Maria," he said. "Do you have proof?" "Not proof," Maria admitted, "but I know what I've seen. Last night, when I stayed with them, they didn't cry. They were happy. I think you should talk to them, ask them how they feel about Jessica." Andrew leaned back, his mind racing. He trusted Maria. She'd been with the family for years, and her dedication was unquestionable. But accusing the nanny was a big step. He'd hired Jessica through a reputable agency, and her references were impeccable. Still, Maria's words struck a chord. He'd been so focused on his work, on keeping the company afloat, that he hadn't noticed the twins' fear. "I'll look into it," he said finally. "Thank you, Maria. I appreciate you bringing this to my attention." Maria nodded, relieved but nervous. She'd crossed a line, stepping out of her role, and she wasn't sure what would happen next. Over the next few days, Andrew watched Jessica closely. He installed a discreet camera in the playroom, something he'd been meaning to do for security, but now used to monitor the nanny. What he saw confirmed Maria's suspicions. Jessica wasn't abusive, but she was impatient, snapping at the twins for small mistakes, dismissing their questions, and spending hours on her phone while they played alone. Sophie and Ethan looked tense around her. Their usual spark dimmed. Andrew called the twins into his office one evening, sitting them down on the couch. "I need you to be honest with me," he said gently. "How do you feel when Jessica's with you?" Sophie looked at Ethan, then back at her father. "She's mean sometimes," she whispered. "She yells when we spill things or ask too many questions." Ethan nodded. "She says we're annoying, and she doesn't read to us like Mommy did." Andrew's heart broke. He'd been blind, too consumed by his work, to see what was happening in his own home. He thanked the twins, hugged them tightly, and promised things would change. The next morning, he fired Jessica, giving her 2-week severance, but making it clear she was no longer welcome. He contacted the agency, reporting her behavior and demanding a refund. Then he called Maria into his office. "You were right," he said, his voice heavy with gratitude. "I didn't see it, but you did. Thank you for speaking up." Maria blushed, unaccustomed to praise. "I just want them to be okay," she said. "They're good kids." Andrew nodded, his mind still reeling. "I've been failing them," he admitted. "I thought I could fix everything with money, with stuff. But they need me, and they need someone like you." Maria looked surprised. "Me? I'm just a maid, Mr. Kessler." "You're more than that," Andrew said. "You saw what I didn't. You care enough to say something. I'd like you to take a bigger role with the twins, if you're willing, not as a nanny, but as, I don't know, a caregiver, someone they trust." Maria hesitated. She had her own daughter to think about, her own responsibilities. But the twins' faces, their small voices, stayed with her. "I'd like that," she said finally. "But I'd need to bring Lila sometimes. Is that okay?" Andrew smiled, a rare warmth in his eyes. "Of course. The more, the merrier." Over the next few weeks, Maria became a fixture in the twins' lives. She brought Lila to the mansion after school, and the 3 children played together, their laughter filling the house. Maria read to them at night, helped with homework, and listened when they talked about their mom. The crying stopped, replaced by smiles and stories. Andrew cut back on his work hours, joined them for dinner, playing games, and rediscovering his children.